Welcome to NeedleXChange, conversations on the art of thread. I'm Jamie Chalmers, aka Mr. X Stitch, and today I'm interviewing Kirstie MacLeod. Kirstie is a textile artist whose extraordinary journey began with performance dresses that filled galleries, sank into seas, and towered 15 feet tall. In this first half of our exchange, we trace her early works, her upbringing across Venezuela, Nigeria, Japan and beyond, and the spark that ignited the Red Dress project in 2009. From the suffocation of stitching inside a Perspex cube to the freedom of creating a platform for hundreds of voices, this is a story of how a bold artistic vision took shape. For another artist who takes needlework to unexpected places, check out NeedleXChange's 73 and 74 with the charming Harriet Riddle, where machine embroidery goes global. And if you enjoy this episode, please share it with a friend who loves textile art. I'll be back next week with the second part of our conversation with Kirstie, but for now, enjoy the show. The thing that strikes me as curious, and I had a chat with Diana Weimar, who is the curator of the Tiny Pricks project. I don't know if you're familiar with that. To do with. Okay, so that's a collective embroidery project that she was inspired by the outpourings of the president, Donald Trump, in his first tenure. And what a wise man he was. So she started doing things that reflected that. And then collectively over time, more and more people have joined in with that project because it's become so many of the phrases that are just so bizarre and the different contrasts, and people have just chipped in with their own embroideries that have reflected things that have struck a chord with them that are of concern. You know, it's become a sort of documentary. It's become a kind of infographic. The connections between her project and your project are very similar. And I was talking to her back in a podcast, insert podcast number here, about this thing that happens when a project stops being your project and it becomes everybody else's project. And I'm really interested to get your take on that.
Yeah, that's exactly and entirely what's happened with the Red Dress. I mean, the first few years were really just me and this dress, obviously connecting with people all over the world, but from my bedroom, you know, from my laptop. And yeah, the first year I did get some funding, so I had help to create the dress, stitch it together. But otherwise, it's just been me and my laptop and the dress for most of the project. And for about the first 10 years or so, very little people were that interested in it. I mean, the dress didn't look like what it does now. No one really wanted to fund it. No one wanted to show her. Occasionally there'd be a bit of press, but it just really was not moving, you know, and there were so many years of frustration. And then suddenly everything just took off and it all just happened. Momentum grew. And yeah, it was exactly that. It was like just this kind of releasing of this experience and what it had been up until that point, and just letting her go out into the world. But I think the first couple of years, I very much, it was a piece of art that I used to show in art galleries. I was a performance installation artist, fine artist. So that was the framework that the Red Dress began in. And it was quite a lot about me and my ego. And it was a lot about, you know, although there's always been this desire to connect with different cultures, to create a platform for expression. It's always been there, cross-cultural collaboration. But it was also a lot about my own identity and growing up all over the world and all this. And after about 2 years, I suddenly realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this is all got to be totally rethought. This dress needs to get out of this gallery setting and out into the world. I need to get myself, like, stand back from it, just, you know, release it. And the most important was to keep the embroiderers center stage and their stories. So the focus kind of really left this whole kind of fine art place into world voices and collaboration.
Did that evolution come naturally? Could it have gone in different directions?
It did come naturally. It could have gone in different directions, but yeah, no, it was very clear. It was very clear, and it was kind of over a period of time. And yeah, once I'd made that decision, a very conscious decision, it was like, okay, that feels better. Like it had been weighing heavy, it wasn't sitting right, and it was almost like it had finally found its place, you know, which was a very freeing feeling.
So when you started out, then there was a Perspex box, and you would sit inside it and you would stitch things. Can you Can you just talk about the original idea and maybe what you thought at the time it would be? Was it going to be like a finite thing? Were you going to do, I'm going to do 6 weeks of this and jobs are good? And like, how did you see it at the start?
It was always going to be a long-term project. So I gave myself 10 years at the beginning to do it.
Yeah. That's gangster. I like that.
Yeah. It was number 7, I think, in a series of very large kind of productions involving dresses. So this was my language. I'd been working in London for about 10 years or so. It was my way of creating expression, was to use garments and textiles. And yeah, so what was the question you just asked? I've kind of veered off.
Well, it was just what was your original vision for it? What did you think that dress would be?
So a lot of all the work I was doing was very focused on women's voices, social injustices, equality, oppression, all my whole life I've been very preoccupied by rights. And so with the red dress, it was very much the focus to try and create something that would bring people together instead of separating people out around the world, one united platform. So the idea initially was that I would wear the dress and I would embroider onto it for a 4-hour period of time, completely locked, screwed tight inside this Perspex box. So it was a comment on oppression. It was a comment on male gaze. It was a comment on not having a voice, not being able to be heard, not being able to be taken seriously. But at the same time, it was trying to elevate voices, trying to create a canvas for all different people to come without prejudice. So I think those first few years, there was too much going on. When I look back at it now, I'm like, ooh, like too much going on. And the embroidery and the embroiderer's stories and voices was kind of lost within, I think it was like my anger and frustration at the world. And this cube, I think the cube, having a woman shot in a box is quite a provocative image. And I wanted it to be at the time. And it was like a real, like, look at this, this is not right. But yeah, once I'd simplified things, once I understood really where this dress needed to go, I think because at the beginning, I didn't really know if I would even be able to connect with people in other countries. I hoped I would. I didn't know if anyone would be interested. So it was quite an ambitious brief at the beginning. But yeah, once I'd started connecting with, particularly like refugees from Palestine, in Lebanon, Egypt, but Bedouin women in Sinai and Egypt. And once I was, had these incredible experiences, and once, this embroidery had been added to the dress, everything just changed. It was like, oh, this is so much more important now. This is so valuable. This is so sacred. That what they have just given me is so sacred, and it needs to be presented better. So yeah, so then I decided to focus on the empowerment of women, the strength of women. So the dress is now always displayed very simply on a mannequin, so that the embroidery can be, center stage as their voices are.
Yeah, it almost feels like you accidentally like over oppressed yourself with the cube or something. Like the fact that you couldn't shake that off for such a period of time was almost like you lived that situation.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just this feeling of suffocation and oppression, and I'd witnessed it in all the countries I'd lived in, and also in England. It was just something that I'd always felt, and without going too deep back into myself, I think it was trying to figure out who I was, trying to deal with my own voices, my own experiences, my own memories of living in so many different countries, and all that brought. And I think, there was a lot of that in it initially. And then, as I said, as soon as I realized that this could be a really important platform for other people, that's when she flew, when she took off.
Yeah. And I do want to get to that, but I'm struck. There's a couple of niggly things now for me. So that was number 7 in a series.
Yes.
So what were the previous 6? What were those pieces?
So yeah, we have Emmeline, which is a huge blue dress, which has a diameter of 16 meters. So I used to wear the dress asleep in the middle inside gallery spaces. So it was actually I was commissioned to create a piece for a Mario Testino exhibition in Phillips de Pury in London. So you can imagine these massive, high glossy fashion images, kind of like double A noughts, massive like glossy pictures, and they were around the sides of this gallery wall, and so the dress just basically filled the whole space. So I was pulling the audience into the piece whether they wanted to or not, because they had to walk all over the dress and me to be able to view the works of art on the wall. And it was interesting because some people would find the whole thing very awkward and they didn't want to stand up on the fabric and they didn't want to come anywhere near me asleep in the middle. But then others had no qualms, just kind of rolling around in the fabric and, coming to try and chat to me and prod me and all this. So that was an interesting one. I did a piece in the Guernsey Sea, which is called Lacrimosa, honouring all the sailors that had died there. And it was all about the Guernsey jumper. So I wore a dress that was knitted from 50,000 meters of fishing line and it was weighted to the seabed. So I was locked in this kind of purgatory style kind of battle between like trying to get to the surface and then being pulled down every time. So I had divers under there with oxygen and things to give me.
Bloody hell.
It was very difficult piece to do. And then also another one to mention is a costume for an opera in Ireland. Phaedra was the opera. So the brief was a 15-foot tall dress that evolved over the 15-minute performance, kind of degraded, and it had to revolve at the same time. So I worked with engineers and all sorts to create this big kind of crinoline that was wired up with irrigation tubes that slowly dripped water onto this dress made of solufleece for embroidery. So the whole thing just gradually began to kind of disintegrate, not like a big whoosh, which was an option, but we decided to do it subtly. So it was all kind of degraded and gnarled and it revealed this whole kind of battered inner core. So and that was 15 foot tall, this dress. So yeah, they've all been pretty epic.
I was going to say, this one now then with, 360 contributors, because it's like normal human size, almost sounds like it's quite a modest piece by comparison.
Yeah, and also the time is what is so different with the red dress. All the others were kind of, 2-3 months creation, there'd be a performance, an exhibition, and then that's done. So Emmeline was shown a few times, but the dress, it's been, so many years of working with the dress.
Oh, there's too many questions now. So this is going to be a 17-part podcast now. Yeah. So let's go. So Emmeline. So blue, but how 16-meter diameter did you say?
Yes. So I had to hire a sports to make the dress because the seams were so long. It was like making a circus tent.
Is there ever a point when you go, I think that's big enough? It doesn't feel like there is.
No, I pushed myself so much. It was always about like making this big impact with me then. And everything was high visual. So Emmeline was like bright blue. Lacrimosa obviously was under the water, but all the photographs in the film are like these kind of very greeny blue colors. And I'm obsessed with color. I'm kind of synesthetic, so I see color when I hear and experience things.
I love synesthesia, right? There was a guy I knew called Jimmy McBride, and he was synesthetic and he was a weaver, and he would weave code words. For him, it was letters turned into colours. So he did a whole series of fabrics that were to do with queer slur words because he was queer. So bitch, queen, those kind of things. And he would weave the fabric so they'd look like plaid, but they'd have those words encoded into them. And unless you knew what his code was, you wouldn't have a clue what was going on. I love synesthesia. I'm quite jealous of that. That's like a superpower.
Yeah.
So when you're lying in the middle of that thing, did you ever actually go to sleep? How long were you in there for?
It was always 3 or 4 hours. All my pieces were 3 or 4 hours. So for the first event at Phillips de Pury, I took sleeping pills because I really wanted.
Oh, wow.
I had one of my best friends came to just be the watcher, the observer to keep me safe, and then there are obviously all the gallery people as well. So I was definitely very drowsy, but I wouldn't say I was completely out. I was kind of aware in and out. And so Moe sponsored the event. It was one of those, kind of cheeky London things. So everyone got quite drunk. So by the end of the evening, there was a chap trying to snuggle in, just near me and people kind of walking and stepping over me and things. So it was hard to get a proper rest, but it was this. Yeah, I used to put myself through a lot in these performances, and just like I think it was all about kind of vulnerability and.
Yeah, was it scary? Was it scary?
It wasn't pleasant, no. But I think the kind of the message I was trying to put out was more important to me. It was just this, and how people interacted with the work was just so telling, And some people had no regard or respect for me there. Found it all quite funny, but most people did. Most people were like, "Oh, I really don't want to go near her. She's sleeping. I'm going to like tiptoe right around the outside." or even avoid that space entirely because I just find that too uncomfortable. One time I performed it, I put microphones underneath the fabric in various places, so you got all this crunching like sound. It wasn't a real silk because it was so massive. It was like a synthetic silk, but it had that kind of slightly crunchy feeling when you walked on it, and it was all padded up with duvets, so it was very squishy. It was like a landscape to walk in and out of.
And where is that piece now?
It's in storage in my garage. Yeah, it's in a huge box. I used to have like, I don't know, 3 or 4 massive storage boxes of all the duvets that went underneath it. I have actually given those away now, but I still have the dress because I'm just like, well, maybe one day I'll do something with her again.
Just go in and like lie on top of it every now and again, just for old time's sake or something. Okay, so there's that one. Then a Guernsey jumper dress made out of how much fishing? 50,000, did you say?
I think it's 50,000, either 20 or 50,000. Yeah, it was not all of it was used, but I was sponsored by a fishing line company, which was fun because I always had to try and get some help with all these products. So they sent me reels and reels and reels of it, and it was very fine. So I forget all the weights now, but there's some that are almost like hair. They're so fine. So it was
right.
A combination of that and then the one up. And I worked with 2 professional knitters who were machine knitters in London at the time to make it because I'm not a knitter. I'd like to be, but I'm not yet. So yeah, it took them a few days of sampling to be able to work the yarn, whatever, through the machine because obviously it's got its own texture and it's quite bendy and unforgiving. So I had to do lots of samples and adjusting, but beautiful what they created. So amazing.
So how big was that?
So normal size for me at the top, but it went down something like 6 meters.
Okay. And then you went out into the Guernsey Sea.
Yes.
And didn't drown somehow.
Didn't drown, yeah. And there was like a medic. It was all organised. So it was commissioned from the Guernsey Arts Commission on the island. So they had all the health and safety very very sorted. But again, it was very cold. It was very uncomfortable to wear, and obviously feeling restricted and being pulled down in water it's terrifying, really. But it wasn't like we were obviously with 6 meters. We weren't kind of fully out in the depths. We were close to shore, and there was even like steps to get down into the sea and stuff. So it was very well planned. But I came out.
Did you have to do like trainings, like swimming in your pajamas like you're supposed to do when you were a kid? Did you have to do like quite a bit of that, swimming with extra weight and stuff? Did you do any training?
No, I did no training. But I'm a very confident swimmer. I think I could swim before I could walk. So no, it was the cold that was the issue because I'm quite small and I really, really, really struggled with that. Because
were you wearing a wetsuit or anything, or were you going for the aesthetic? So I guess you couldn't, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the piece that was shown in the exhibition was a film and photographs, and actually the photographs came out amazingly, really ethereal. So I actually have an edition of those photographs that they've sold quite a lot. I mean, you can't really see a huge amount really, but it's just all about the kind of ethereal shapes, and it's very death space, which was the whole point of the work in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, then we talked about a dress that was 15 foot tall.
Yeah. So the Phaedra dress. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. So this was Happy Days Festival, I think it was called, in Ellenskillen in Ireland. So the director of this opera, who I knew from London, Sophie Hunter, wrote to me. She'd seen the various other dresses I'd done. And also I'd done a wedding dress for a mutual friend of ours. That's a whole other story. I was down in a salt mine, I'll tell you that.
I was going to say, was that a normal wedding dress? But no, of course not.
Absolutely not. So she knew what I was doing, and she said, is there any way you could create a dress for this opera? It's 15 minutes, but it needs to be, 15 foot tall. It needs to revolve. It needs to degrade over 15 minutes. And it was weird. For like a second, I was like, what? But then I was like, oh, soddy fleece. I said, yeah, I can do it. I know what I'll use. Because I'd had this experience when I was at uni of soddy fleece. where I'd made this whole dress, taken hours and hours making it, and then I went to dip dye it in tea, and I pulled up just the seams, and I was like, "What just happened?" I had no idea what solid fleece was, so I just had these seams in my hand. I was like, "What? I don't understand." So anyway, so I've used solid fleece a lot, and yeah, so that was interesting. It was extensive, and it was a lot of pressure because there were 2 performances. I had to have 3 practice dresses as well, so it's just so much sewing. Basically, it was really ruffly and fluffily on solid fleece dress, kind of meringue like wedding dress style, but huge and long. And then this internal core that was steel, and then we wrapped with irrigation tubes, but also it was wrapped with all to do with the story of Phaedra, like horsehair and red, all this kind of ribbon and tape. And it was like this really kind of bodily kind of inner core. It was quite gross, really. It was dark and upsetting. That was the point of the performance. So when the solid fleece began to slowly melt and degrade and kind of trickle and fall, it just revealed this inner core. But the opera singer, wow, what an amazing woman. Ruby Philogene is her name. She's a mezzo-soprano opera singer. And I mean, the stuff she had to go through with that. I mean, so first of all, it was in an old equestrian centre. So there's all the sawdust on the floor. So she had to be whisked in right before the performance started. And she used to often have to cover her face because of the dust. She was cherry picked into the dress and out because she couldn't, it was just so tall, obviously. So I was like constantly climbing up and down the sides, trying to keep everything ready and working. And then just the apprehension of, the tap gets turned on. Is it going to dissolve? Is it going to work? There was so much that could go wrong. So yeah, luckily both performances were brilliant, really worked. And the audience, because I had the pleasure of being able to see their faces, you can see them after a few minutes, they're like rubbing their eyes, like, what's going on? Like, and then suddenly something just falls off and they're like, what? And they couldn't believe what they were seeing, which was magical.
That's so good. God, that's just bonkers. Just an aside, I love opera and I love ballet, right? And I've not seen opera for real. I don't think I have seen the ballet for real. But the thing I love about it is, like, every now and again, you drift and you just get absorbed in the story. And then you go, oh, bloody hell, she's been singing really well at the top of her voice for the past 20 minutes. Or, oh, blooming heck, that person's been standing on tiptoe for 15 minutes or something. I just love that discord, how you forget the magnificence of the performance. You're just going to get carried away with it. And then, by the way, that's just such a numpty thing to say, though. But, okay. Well, yeah. I feel like now, because that's 3 of the 7, I feel like I don't know whether any of them have ever been. Talk about the wedding dress then.
Yeah, the wedding dress. So this was for a very good friend of mine who's a performance artist called Eloise Fornieles. And she and her actually ex-husband now, but David Birkin, both artists, performance artists, they were to be married inside a salt mine in Wales. So even for the wedding, we were all in hard hats and going down in elevators into this. The actual ceremony was just absolutely stunning. And it took place in this cave, really. And it was just tiny little candles all the way around. So when Eloise asked me, I mean, we were very good friends at the time anyway, I'd made her loads of little bits and bobs to wear. And she said, about the wedding dress. So I was like, of course, I'm going to do that for you, of course. And so we just thought, well, what are we going to do? And after a chat, and obviously I know her work very well, which is kind of intertwined in the dress, but we decided on basing it on the goddess Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. And so she has this huge crown of antlers, like that I worked with a milliner in London to create, and the veil was just placed over the top of the antlers. So it was this massive space for her just walking down the aisle with all this kind of extended space, and then this massive crown of antlers. So that was strong. She wanted to ride into battle like Boudica with her breasts on show. Lots of her performance art, she's naked. So I was like, oh, I mean, I get why you want to do that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's...
What's your granny going to say?
Yeah, exactly. So in the end, what we did was we did this corset, really like tiny corset. And it was all in different metallic organzas, different shades with antique Parisian silver lace. And then they had this, so it did stop under her boobs, but we just draped this really lovely antique silver lace on the top. So if if you really looked, you could see, but it was enough. And she was happy with that because, and then the skirt, wow, the skirt was absolutely huge, and it was layers and layers of different shades of silver and kind of coppery colors, silk organza, and they were all pleated and folded, and so obviously you can see through all the different layers. So it was this idea of like an armor, like a soft armor. And then she has this, in all these paintings she was doing, she'd do this red line going from whichever being or creature's mouth going up into their backsides. It was like this kind of cycle that she used to do. So, well, we've got to have the red line in it. So it was this whole plume of red going all the way down the back of the train. So yeah, it was extraordinary. It got quite a lot of press at the time, but yeah, and it was pretty unique.
And what did the groom wear? Just
a hat
and trousers.
He wore vintage military uniform. I believe he's half, was he half Russian, half, I think it was Russia. It was a very beautifully tailored army uniform, military uniform. It looked great, and all the dress code for the wedding was, what was it, something like beautifully dark or something like that. So it's extraordinary outfits, left, right, and centre. So yeah, memorable.
Now, I'm going to take a punt and assume that she's not listening to this podcast now, so I can ask a few more questions about this lady, because I'm kind of curious. Is the rest of her life like that? Or, for instance, I just had to take my children on the school run, and it's quite a mundane and stressful experience. And I can't help but consider the contrast between the wedding that we've spoken of in a salt mine in Wales and shouting at your children to put their shoes on for the 20th time.
Yeah, she's not a mum. She doesn't have kids, and she's now in a same-sex relationship and lives in Greece. So yeah, her life is definitely
on the edge of a cliff in a house made of sugar. I mean, fair play. I think there are some people like that, aren't there, who can't be contained. I think that's quite remarkable. It's quite remarkable.
And she has this chihuahua. Well, she had this chihuahua that she'd bring everywhere with her, Chi-Chi. So it was always Eloise and Chi-Chi together. I think she was even at the wedding. I can't remember.
I don't. Yeah. Because some people, I've met artists who they're just making the art that they have to make because it's the only art that they can make. That's what they put on the planet for. So fair play for embracing it, I guess. Are there any other noteworthy? So we've done like 3 out of the 7 projects. Are there any? Can we do all 7? Can you recall them all?
I think.
Well, I guess the red dress is number 7, isn't it? So
yeah, they're the high impact ones. There was I'll just briefly just say there was one that was a stop animation of a little black dress unraveling and nailing itself to the floor, trapping the wearer inside. It was like a up yours from the little black dress to the lady. Just, I've had enough of being paraded around. This is what I'm going to do to you. And then I did about maybe 5 different wedding dresses as well. And then 2 for events, for various events for women in London. And it was a very exciting time, but I never made any money. I mean, I was just a waitress to earn my money. Work was great, but it was not sustainable. I couldn't earn a living from it in any way. And most of the time, because I'd often be working with my collaborator Gail on the dresses, not so much for the art pieces, but definitely for the wedding dresses. Who's a couturier and amazing, and so she needed paying. The materials needed to be bought. They're all silks. I mean, it's massive costs. So some of these dresses without my time are kind of 3 or 4 grand. So if I whack on my time, I'm spending 2 months on a dress. I mean, it's not affordable. So, but it was great practice, great learning, great to get out there. And I think I straddled the fashion and the art world. People didn't know where to place me, but what was great is that no one else was doing it. So, I got a lot of exhibitions. I got a lot of exposure on things. But then I decided to focus all my efforts on the red dress because that's what felt much more nourishing and real and important. And I think it also coincided with me finding yoga and meditation and becoming a mom and all these kind of things. I kind of settled down. Yeah, it was good.
Into a little cube for a while.
Into a little cube, yeah. After the cube, I settled down.
Yeah.
I was still full of rage in the cube.
I feel like some of the rage might have come from some of the other projects, to be honest. I'm glad that there were some that maybe didn't involve personal jeopardy, but it sounds like that's quite a recurring theme as you look back. So 2009 was when the red dress started, yeah. And so So you started stitching, and with the motifs, like were you like just intuitively embroidering onto it, whatever came to mind, or were there deliberate things that you were putting there in the first place?
So my only additions at that point were just what I was doing in performance. So I probably did maybe 3 of those. Those were, it's actually interesting. It's very hard to sew onto a dress that you're wearing, especially when it's that long. So I didn't think about that before I, just designed it. I was like, so then I think I even had to put a little slit in it so I could get my hand in. And
Yeah, right. Yeah.
yeah, and obviously there's lights and there's people, and so it wasn't, when I embroider now, I really like my piece. I love stitching in community, or I love to just be quiet, but to have lights on you and people peering in and everything, it's not that comfortable. So I didn't do my best work in those times, but it was more kind of mark making, I would say, during those performance pieces. I have done lots of intentional embroidery on the dress as well over the years. Often it's to mark a specific event or experience, someone that needs to be honoured, someone that needs to be remembered. The spider web is mine on the back. I put that on in 2012 at a time when no one was that interested, and I felt very frustrated with the project. And it was this desire to try and create this web of connection around the world. Yeah, so it was like just put that on. And actually, it's the whole idea of spiders and arachne and mythology and spinning and weaving and stories. It's fascinates me. So, and also I do a cluster of stars in a specific color every time the dress is exhibited somewhere. So you'll see swathes of different colored stars, and it looks better the more I'm doing. So it started off just like pink from Kosovo when we were in Kosovo, and then it was blue into Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then it was yellow into Poland. And yeah, so you'll see around the dress that you've got all that as well. I like it because it kind of it's time and place, it's a memory, and it's important.
Was the decision to embroider on it, was it just purely mark making, or were you also leaning into the embroidery is women's craft, all of that narrative?
Yeah, I mean, in the installation at the beginning, definitely. And I'm thinking of a particular book called Subversive Stitch back there.
Yeah, Rosika Parker, God bless her.
Exactly, yeah. That really informed a lot of the work I was doing, and this idea of women's work in this submissive kind of head down, but actually what's going on the fabric is an entirely different thing. It's actually quite an aggressive act in a way. It's like this puncturing with a sharp object, and it's every stitch has an intention, and it has the potential to be subverted in all different sorts of different ways. Who knows what you're stitching. I did a piece when I was doing that performance in the Royal Academy. I stitched in human hair.
Okay.
So that was it's kind of like everyone's like, oh, what a lovely scene, and they come closer and it's like, oh God.
Quite a pain to work with human hair as well, isn't it? It's strong, but it isn't strong. It's like,
yeah, and it was going all over the place. But yeah, I did like a kind of sacred geometric kind of symbol in the human hair.
It's interesting though that in some ways the embroidery and like because of the subversive stitch and all that, but actually you've managed to kind of turn it into a tool of power, kind of, haven't you? It's like you've proven that, because the thing that's always struck me about needlework anyway, and I can't remember when it struck me, but it's the ubiquity of it. You go to any corner of the world and embroidery is there and people know how to do it, and it's really tangible, it's really ground level, it really connects people, and there's a real honesty to that. And I think it's interesting how we do, because of commercialized marketing, that's where we get the lady sits in the corner and she does the needlework, and the man goes and makes art and conquers mountains, and aren't we great and all that. But actually then you've reappropriated it and kind of gone, no, we do it to tell the truth.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's like, if you're not going to listen to our voices, then listen to this. You can't ignore this. And yes, you can, because it's often craft, whatever. I'm so tired of this discussion. It just infuriates me. It creating art, whatever, with paint, with stitching, with thread, with drawing, it's all the same. It's voice, and you know this. But yeah, for those that do have issue with or put women in this particular box, for working in this way, then yeah, now look at it, and that's taken me like a week to make, and I've put my heart and soul into that. And the other thing with embroidery is because it's so accessible, obviously not everyone, but most people can get the majority of the people of the world can have access to a needle and a thread, whether it's through making clothes or mending clothes, or through embroidery in a more decorative or expressive or healing way. It doesn't kind of have borders, and I love that. All the countries I've ever been to, someone's embroidering.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It doesn't have borders. It's a universal language. And I know it's a visual language, and I know you can say that about painting and this and that and the other. But like you say, painting always got a break because men did painting or whatever it was. But I think that's what adds to it's like the unsaid value of that dress. Like there's so many layers to the dress, and we will go into that at some point. But I just think the fact that it's needlework, which most people, they just don't take it seriously because it's so easy to do. And then you've used it as like a Babel fish, as a way of people from all different parts of the world to communicate all kinds of stories in a way that once you pay attention to the dress, you can't ignore the stories. Like that's what I love about the dress, is you can look at it and go, oh, it's a nice dress. And then you can go, oh, there's a lot of needlework. And then you can go, those needlework appear to be from different places. Those needlework appear to be telling different stories. Oh, my sweet Lord, look at the stories they're telling. And so it goes, and I've done similar. It's not the same at all, but like I did a collaborative thing of making a Christmas tree with a load of cross-stitch baubles on it. And in the end, we had like 600 baubles from around the world. And people go, oh, it's a tree with baubles. And then they go, oh, they're cross-stitched. And then they go, oh, but that one came from like Trinidad and Tobago or something. And that layering is such a good whammy because people are so conditioned to think one thing about needlework in the first place. And it feels like the dress is almost like the perfect encapsulation of that, because there's about 9 different journeys that people can go on when they stare at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope that's the case.
I think it's undoubtedly the case. It's just, so where was the first country that you went to when you decided it was going to go into? Did you think it would go international, or were you just like, well, I'll try it with one group and see what happens?
No, I hoped international because I'm pretty well travelled as a child.
Yeah.
So there was always that intention, but I didn't know whether it would be possible. That was the tricky thing. But so I wrote to just everyone that I knew. I was tutoring for a little bit at the Royal School of Needlework, not embroidery. I was teaching them creative practice, so I had some networks there. Also, my art contacts, but most importantly were my parents, because we'd travelled so much. They had contacts, all over the place. So It was just a lot of emails, and a lot of people weren't interested. And also, I didn't have the skills then to really manage a project, as vast as this. It was all like learning as I went and winging it for the first few years. Also, language barriers have been an issue and such forth. But trying to kind of clearly articulate my vision and intention, and it was difficult to kind of have this. Have the entirety, of what I had in my head. It was hard to kind of get that out initially, and but then it became easier, and then more people got involved, and then after about 3 or 4 years, then it was just purely people writing to me to ask if their charity could be involved or their group could be involved, or whether they could add a panel, and that was lovely. And then I just trusted that the right people were coming in at the right time.
I guess because the RSN students were one of the first tranche of people to stitch on it other than yourself. And as you said, you had a prior relationship with them. So that was probably a really useful transition ground, wasn't it? You learning how to explain the project to other people and then seeing what would happen when they're unleashed. And then exceptional embroidery skills just on the back of it as well.
Yes, yeah, it was beautiful. And then the school then worked on it again in 2022, all the school, not just the foundation year, and about 3 of the staff as well, in one day. They did hour sittings. I think it was 6 at a time, like boom, 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 all day. It was incredible. But yeah, amazing.
I've got a lot of time for those guys. So okay, because you mentioned it a couple of times. Because I am interested. What I didn't want to do was I could feel the conversation was going further and further back in time. And I'm like, no, we've got to keep talking about the dress. But we've talked about the dress for a minute. So I want to go back in time again now, because I like the way that we've nonchalantly mentioned the fact that you made a 15-foot high dress and all of these sorts of things, as though that's just an everyday occurrence. And I'm interested to know how you get to that point. But you've also said you traveled a lot around as a child. So are you able to kind of tell me the backstory up to the point of, say, 2009, roughly speaking?
Yeah,
That'd
of course. Right. So yeah, I'm one of three girls. I've got two sisters, my best friends, and we have lived everywhere really. So I was born in Venezuela. My father used to work in energy, so he began in Shell, then he moved he's in oil, then he moved to hydrogen, and then he left Shell and began to work for renewable energy. So like one of his jobs was called Iogen, I think it was, and they used to turn straw into ethanol, that kind of thing. So it was a good arc that he went through. But it meant that every 3 or 4 years he'd be posted somewhere else. So we'd all move. So yeah, I was born in Venezuela. I'm the eldest. Then we moved to Barbados. Then was back to England briefly, and then it was Nigeria, then Japan, then Holland, then Canada. Wow. But my sisters and I all came back to boarding school around the age of 10, which was pretty traumatic, if I'm honest. But also, I mean, we are so close, my sisters and I, and, our friends became family, so it was a different life. I mean, I don't know anything different, but I think we've all had to do a lot of, work and healing and trying to understand. It's pretty traumatic being separated from your parents, and we were a very close family. So, it was difficult, but we had each other. And like, I feel like I'm in a very good place with that now. And I'm grateful for that experience because it's taken me on the journey that I've been on. And I've, a combination of that and also working with the dress, I've done so much work on myself and therapy and meditation and all sorts. So school, and then always just loved art, wasn't really interested in anything else. Sports, yes, so art and sports. I think I'm probably ADHD, definitely neurodiverse, but I'm not like, I don't need to go and get a certificate or anything, but that's just the way my brain's always worked. It's very fast. I'm always on the go. Art sport was always my thing. And then I did a foundation degree in Wimbledon School of Art. Absolutely fell in love with textiles during that year. Then I did a BA in Bristol, UE in Bower Ashton in textile design, which was just incredible. The course was run just for that period of time. I'm so blessed by this incredible fine artist called Andrew Savage, who I think for his final collection at St. Martin's made a collection of clothing that was buried in his garden for 6 months before. And something that, and it was covered in mold. And then he's got this cast iron drain cover somewhere in some forest somewhere in England that's like 18 karat gold. And he just does this kind of crazy stuff with materials.
Yeah.
And we were kind of blowing stuff up and we were making things out of concrete. And it was not a repeat flower in sight. The whole course was completely incredible. It blew my mind. And in that time, I realized what textiles could be. And so in my final year there, I began working with dresses, and that's how it all started. And I did this whole kind of dreamscape called Dreaming Dresses, I think it was. And I had all these really gnarly kind of installations of dresses rigged up like puppets. It was all quite dark and sinister. And then I rigged up something with a tumble dryer drum. I went to the electronic department and they helped me make this kind of swirling vista with this dress coming out. It was very kind of David Lynch is probably what I'm coming to. Like very, that was the kind of thing I was into at the time. So pretty dark, but pretty out there. So then I did an MA in visual language back at Wimbledon School of Art, visual language and performance it was actually called. Okay. So it was quite random really. There's only 5 of us on the course, and there was an architect, an actress, producer and a sound designer and me. So we were all coming from such different disciplines. But in that year, we were taught how to make films, soundscapes, how to light things theatrically. It was all about bringing liveness into work. So there was me with all my garments and dresses. That was my vision. But it taught me so much. It was actually a really difficult year. And I was always really struggling with the theory because I'm not brilliant at writing. I'm a bit dyslexic. I get confused with words. I'm much more visual. So I remember that being hard, but it did teach me so much. And I came out of that with this kind of like absolute like, epic kind of drive and hunger to just keep making and making and making. And yeah, so then that takes me into London, where I was for about 10 years, I think. And then now I'm in Somerset.
So other than the time that you put yourself in a box, it doesn't feel like you're someone that can be put in a box. Like, I mean, I'm curious about like when you travel the world like that as a child, like, do you identify as being British, or are you just like, I'm like a human sort
A
of?
human. It's exactly that, human. I have like a well-spoken English accent from boarding school. That's where I got this. Before I went there, my accent was all over the place. I actually spoke to I was at this dinner party like in London, so this is about 15 years ago, and I was sitting next to someone who was someone that researches and understands speech and languages. And
Okay.
gosh, where have you been? Like, where do you live? Like, what is going on with your accent? And he's like, I'm picking up Yoruba, I'm picking up this, I'm picking up Japan. You know, it's just from all the different ways of speaking and speaking. And my dad's also Scottish, so I've got a bit of probably that in there as well.
Right. Just as an aside, is it MacLeod as in like, because I went to the Isle of Lewis and there's a lot of MacLeods to be found over there.
That's where we're originally from. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, man.
Yeah.
You guys make good black pudding, but that's an aside.
Yeah.
So presumably you were in those countries for long enough to learn the languages as well.
I would have been if I had that blessing of being able to learn languages. I feel like I'm very familiar. Yeah, I'm not very blessed in that way. One of my sisters is great at languages, but I never was. But yeah, certainly basics like getting around, definitely. Yeah, and also the customs and traditions.
Yeah, and I guess they've all been imprinted on your background so that then something like the dress comes along and you've just got a confidence because you know that there'll be these places and that the outcomes can be achieved even if you're not looking at the detail.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the world doesn't feel like a vast unknown place to me. I think I've traveled so much. I feel like I have experience
that must
in.
be so nice.
Yeah. The flip side of it is not feeling rooted. So until I moved to Somerset and became a mum, I had no idea really where I belonged or didn't have a feeling of kind of security anywhere because I was just like always moving. And I mean, from at school, we changed dorms every term, so we'd be in 3 different bedrooms a year. And then, when we were back in home, we'd often be moving and stuff. So it was just, and then university, always moving. And then, being in my 20s, always moving. And so I think, like the experiences are rich and incredible. And they give you a very, I think, wide perspective on life and an understanding of, or more of an understanding of people. But also then in my own self, I was kind of a bit wayward and unanchored and insecure, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all that, isn't it? Having a stable piece of ground under your feet is fundamental. I'd imagine that's why your sisters are your best friends, because you are the stable ground for each other.
Yes, exactly. And we all know exactly what we've been through. We've been through the same, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. There are several in the dress. I mean, maybe we should talk about the dress as though no one's heard about it, because I don't feel like we've done that, actually. That would be quite a good idea. Could you describe the dress, please?
Yeah. Should I also give you some stats as well about like...
Go on, yeah, because there are some awesome stats. I like the one about like flying on a plane and all that, but yeah, go for it, please.
So the red dress involves the stitches and voices of 380 different embroiderers from 51 countries around the world. So it's 367 women and girls have worked on the dress, 11 men and boys, and 2 non-binary individuals. The dress is made, it's 87 panels of burgundy silk dupion. It consists of 2 different pieces. It's a bodice. It's a very fitted bodice, boned fitted bodice with long sleeves, and then a kind of vast and expansive skirt, which is kind of like a bell shape. So the idea was not to have the dress rooted in any particular time, culture, or place, but to have a dress definitely looks. So it was inspired by ceremonial robes and military uniforms. They were the 2 main themes. So I think it definitely looks better than special. It looks kind of formal. It looks kind of grand, but it doesn't, I hope, I think someone wrote the other day, It could be in India, it could be like an Indian dress, it could be somewhere in Saudi Arabia, it could be somewhere in England, it could be South America. It's trying not to be anywhere too specific, but it's empowering to wear, empowering. The idea of the military lines, the tailoring was to give the dress this kind of strength. It's not about attacking anyone or fighting. It's about this strength of self. It's about celebrating and accentuating the female body, the curves. Like every pattern piece is there's no straight lines in the dress. It's all curves. When Gail, my collaborator, was creating the pattern, everything is curved, and we try and really work with the shape of the woman's body to create beautiful lines. The bodice is fixed, was a fixed shape. The skirt has totally evolved over time and place. So it began literally as just a long rectangle off the roll, and then it was pleated at the top, and then slowly but surely it's been kind of altered and moved, taken lots of the weight out the top, put godets in at the bottom. And then at one point we dropped the waistline down by about a foot to then create the train down the back. So everything has this kind of slightly backward leaning, sloping feeling on the skirt. And the panels are completely diverse. The embroiderers all use their own threads. So you have everything from hand-dyed cottons to silk to sequins. There's even a beetle scarab shell on there. There's paper. There's a seashell. There's wool, there's crystals, there's pearls, there's everything. And in terms of the embroidery, the brief was very, very open. It was to create a piece of work that articulates your identity and the culture that you're from, and inviting the embroiderers to share their voice. What do they want to tell the world? And you see lots of traditional motifs, particularly from the women from South America. You can almost locate their embroidery to a specific town or even family from what they've created. Interestingly, there's a panel from San Juan Chimula in Chiapas. Hilaria Lopez Patistan, who was 17 at the time, created that. Beautiful. And last year in South Africa, one of the audience came to me and said, "Is that created in San Juan Chimula?" And I said, "Yeah, it totally is. It's exactly where it was created." And they just recognized it. And so there's lots of that. And then there are lots of abstract pieces, lots of pieces inspired by nature, birds. There's lots of text. And then you have the pieces which are generally done in quite simple stitches, but are kind of profound stories, memories, protests, experiences that, can absolutely, just melt your heart, break your heart, bring you to the floor. They're so powerful. And I think people always ask me, "Oh, what's your favorite panel?" And it's like, for me, I could never, it's like choosing my favorite child. Like I feel so connected to all of the embroidery on the dress and the embroiderers. But what I love is that I now feel, and it finally happened in the last kind of year or so, that the dress now, they all work together. They're all a dialogue. There's a flow now, like through the embroidery. And after I finally managed to be able to get funding from 2020 onwards, and we were also beginning to do museum exhibitions, it meant that the dress could be worked on directly rather than me sending out a panel in the post. So that was beautiful because it gave the embroiderers the opportunity to respond to what was already on the dress and also go near another piece. And, so you get these very kind of beautiful and poignant kind of conversations also happening. Yeah, so I love the community voice, the combined voice. That's my favorite part when I look at it now.
Yeah, that's a fascinating alchemy, isn't it? Because you can do collaborative projects where people work in isolation, and that's got its own magnificence. But like you say, if you can then have people from different parts of the world who, because I guess, you've got pieces from Kosovo, you've got pieces from Bosnia Herzegovina, those have got really strong storylines behind them, Rwanda. And then I guess when other people see those and you're telling the stories of those, that probably completely disrupts their initial thinking about what they might stitch and gives them an opportunity to reconsider. And I mean, that's magic, right?
Yeah, it is.